when I'm talking down to myself, I remember I'm like, this is the little girl, Rob, that you're speaking to. Like, speak nice to her. You know, if she was sitting next to me, I wouldn't pull her apart. I wouldn't tell her that, she should be better or whatever. I would encourage her and be her friend. So that's what we do need to be to ourselves as well. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Miracle Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Robbi, and today's episode is a solo episode. I'm going to be speaking about a topic that is, in my opinion, incredibly interesting. It's something that relates to all of us, even if we don't know it yet. It's about the inner child. Now, this is something I'm by no means an expert in at all. It's something that I'm very interested in and I'm actively learning about right now. I've been talking a lot to my life coach about it, as well as my producer, Emma. We're just speaking about it. And I think this is something that's really impactful for all of us. And I didn't know much about it, and the more I'm learning about it, the more I'm like, okay, wow, like this is very, very powerful and it's very, very relevant. So let's get straight into it. So first off, I'm going to speak with you about what my understanding of an inner child is. Now, when I first heard it, I was like, that sounds like, some meditation, like type of stuff. I'm not super into all of that. But then the more I learned about it, the more I'm like, okay, I definitely have an inner child. So basically there's two versions of us, really. There's the current version of us right now, which is I'm an adult, I'm sitting here, I've learned a lot. And then there's the inner child, which is the version of me where I absorbed all of the things around me that created the personality and the person that I am. So as a child, our brain is incredibly absorbent, which means that we hold on to those memories and those experiences, even if we don't actively remember them. They're in our subconscious, right? And these are the experiences that create our personality. So if you were maybe in a very quiet family, you may have a more quiet personality. It was the experiences that shaped you. And it's those experiences that shape us into the person that we are now, those really happy moments, those traumatic moments that we may not even remember or have shared with other people, those lonely moments, those highs, all of those things that go into creating a personality in a person. And it also shapes the way that we react to scenarios, because that was kind of what we were surrounded with. So as I've grown up, there's been so many times when I've experienced something and I've related it back to my childhood, I'm like, I saw my dad treat my mom a certain way when they were growing up, very respectful, very loving. And I remember being like, that's what I want when I grow up. That was part of what shaped me. So then when I was in a relationship where I wasn't getting that same type of love and validation, I knew that's not exactly what I want, because I related it back to that circumstance. And I think so many times subconsciously we do that, we make a friend and they're not treating us a certain way, or something's off, and we relate it back to maybe a childhood friend or a time that we felt that love and that type of friendship from somebody else, that we want more than that. And I think that's just a very general example of how we relate things back to our inner child. So this is what I've been learning about, guys, is that we need to address our inner child. So first, I think it starts with understanding what that is. So I think I've given you a kind of a brief, albeit messy definition of that. And that's why it's so important to, one, not only understand what is your inner child, but then to also address it. Because then when you address it and you understand it, then you can heal and you can move on. There's been so many times, especially recently, that I've just been so busy. Like almost to a bad degree. I'm just rushing from thing to thing, getting things done. What happens to all of us, all of us get stuck in this rat race of going to work, coming home, making dinner, feeling exhausted. We'll put on a movie or something, and we're not actually taking time to be still and just sit with ourselves and absorb what's actually going on around us. And that can be really dangerous when we're doing that, when we're not having conscious alone time to be still and be present. And when we're not doing that, we're not absorbing those things and processing them. That will then shape the future us. However that is for you, actively thinking about your past, praying, doing a devotional, just taking that time to be present with yourself and by yourself. It's when I'm not doing that I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm getting anxious, I'm feeling depressed, and like the world just, is just like a blur going on around me, and I'm going through the motions. And I think looking back to our inner child, our younger version of ourselves, we can do the hard work. We can go back to our most traumatic memories and our scariest memories that we tend to not think about, and we can address that. But in saying that, also go back to your most positive, happy memories as well, because that is really, really powerful. So for example, for me, my happiest memory as a child was we have this huge dam. It was insane. It was over an acre. And I had my siblings, all of them there, 5 of them, and we were just all playing in the dam, and my parents were there and the dogs were swimming. And I just remember like looking up and just feeling so, so happy. That for me was my happiest childhood memory. So maybe pause this podcast just for a second and think to yourself, what is my happiest childhood memory? And is it something that you like, was it hard for you to think of that memory? Was it something that came straight to your mind, or was it something you really had to sit and think about? And when you're going through a really tough day, go back to that memory. Think about it. Just close your eyes for a second. Sit there. Think about for me, I can feel the sun on my skin. I can hear the laughs of my sisters and my dog swimming up to me. I can hold on to that. And I think that's really important, because when life gets crazy and overwhelming, which it always will and always does, it's really important that we hold on to those things. And something else that I found a really powerful tool when speaking to myself, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I can find myself speaking down to myself, just being mean, like you should be doing better, or whatever it is, looking in the mirror and being like, oh, my skin is so bad, my forehead is, we all have those things. We look in the mirror and we pull ourselves apart. I think something that's really important and that will ground us is remember who you're speaking to. You're speaking to that little girl. I have a photo of myself when I'm younger. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put it up on the screen right here. This is the photo I look at when I'm talking down to myself. I remember I'm like, this is the little girl, Rob, that you're speaking to. Like, speak nice to her. If she was sitting next to me, I wouldn't pull her apart. I wouldn't tell her that she should be better or whatever. I would encourage her and be her friend. So that's what we do need to be to ourselves as well. So this is the picture. This is me. I think I would have been about like 7 years old here. I don't know. I still have that same cheesy grin. I'm a little bit taller now, but I think I was better dressed then. I don't know about you guys. My grandma actually made all of my sisters, 4 of us, this same dress, and we used to all match. Very cute. Fashion icon from a young age. So in the same way I just spoke to you guys about recalling a positive memory, it's also important to go back to those traumatic memories that we may not want to think about. And it's really important when you're doing this, don't set up camp and live there. We all know those people who are like talking about, they're stuck in the past. They're talking about something like, back in my day, like my neighbor did this, and they're stuck in the past. Like, don't get stuck there, but go there and explore it and consciously think about unwrapping that and going into it. So a really traumatic moment for me as a child was when I was 13. I came and lived in the United States with my cousins. I did a gap year here. I was just here for 1 year. And our house actually burned down to the ground. We lost everything that we owned, everything. The craziest thing was that the only thing that didn't burn was a Bible, which was my aunt's. And this was in California. I was with my cousins, and I was actually visiting my grandma in a different state. And I flew back into the airport, and there was no one there to pick me up. And I remember just calling my aunt and uncle, and they didn't answer. And my phone was blowing up. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I saw the house on the news. Are you okay? Like, freaking out. And I was like, what's going on? Finally got in contact with my aunt and uncle. Keep in mind, guys, I'm literally 13 at this point. And they're like, yeah, the house is burnt down. So I was like, I've just, we had just lost everything. We then ended up going into a hotel. So we're at this hotel. It was a resort. It was on a golf resort. And this is a lot, but basically just after this had happened, about a month after the house had burnt down, my dad's best friend was in town, and he had offered to take me out with his family to the desert to ride motocross and, to ride the motorbikes out there on the dunes. I had grown up racing, so for me, that was an awesome opportunity. And then straight after that, like on the way to the desert, we got into a car crash. That's when I ended up breaking basically everything, including my neck. And that for me was a really traumatic moment because it shaped my whole life. I remember waking up in hospital and they're like, you are lucky to be walking. And I just felt it was the most shaping moment for me, because I felt in some ways so resentful and so angry, and like, why me? Like, we lost everything on the house fire. I'm in my 9th grade. Everything is kind of meant to be coming together. And then here I am, like laying in hospital with broken bones, being told I'm lucky to walk, And I think at the same time I felt resentful, I also felt really lucky and really blessed, because I was like, wow. Like, so that for me is one of my most shaping moments. I can recall it so vividly, and it really shaped who I am. And I look back at it now and I'm like, wow, like God is good. I am blessed. Like there was so much purpose for my life. The fact that, you know, I'm okay. And then I walked away from that. And yeah, like my neck hurts now sometimes. Like I have huge knuckles because I've, you know, broken them all. It was a lot. The story didn't end there. Just because we're getting into it, I'll quickly tell you. Basically, I had just got back to school, finally got out of hospital, still doing rehab, doing all this stuff. Literally go back to school and I turn around and I got hit in the face with a basketball, broke my nose. So at this point, I'm like broken neck in 2 spots, broken arm, all broken fingers. Now I've got a broken nose. So I go back to hospital. Walking out of hospital, and I swear this is a true story. It sounds crazy. I'm walking out of hospital and I step off the curb and I break my foot. Okay, at this point, my mom and my dad are like, what in the world is going on? So my dad flew over and they're like, we're going back. Like, you're going back to Australia. So I ended up going back to Australia at this point, cut my trip short. And actually, because of all of the issues with my neck, my muscles atrophied in my shoulders. So I ended up having to get both of my shoulders reconstructed straight after this. So, you know, it sounds like a traumatic issue. For me, I really just struggled with the why me situation. You know, I was such a talented athlete. I'd grown up super competitive. So to have physical limitations put on me was, it was a hard moment. But, you know, it wasn't until I was older that I started like thinking back. I'm like, yeah, that was like traumatic as heck. This is a wild story. But at the same time, I'm super blessed. So I've gone back and I really had to come to peace with that and come to terms with that. And, you know, this is just one story. And I'm sure you guys, you know, we all have different versions and different chapters in different lives. But I know to some degree you can relate to having experienced something very hard that was a pivotal moment for you that you look back and you're like, wow, I am powerful. Like the inner child within me, like got through that. And I think it's really important to remember that even though through that trauma, like you came through that. And I think that's really, really important. So, you know, I had to use my adult Robbi brain to come to terms with that and accept that, you know, that is part of my journey. We all have different journeys, and to kind of accept it, not feel bitter about it, and instead flip the script around it and feel thankful that I got through it. And I still will, and I continue to work with my inner child to get through that, get through experiences that happened even when I was an adult, things that shape me. And I think doing that is really important because it helps you, one, not only be self-aware, but two, it also helps you heal. So I was telling you guys, the times that I'm feeling most anxious and most overwhelmed are the times when I'm not sitting still and having these thoughts and taking time alone to, you know, have these conversations with myself. And another thing, not just acknowledging that inner child and those experiences that you've had, is also taking time to nurture them. So think about it. So write down right now, as a child, what were the 3 things that you loved doing the most? For me, I loved being at the beach. I grew up by the beach. We were there nearly every single day. So that is like part of my soul. I'm living in the city right now, which is not quite the same. But, you know, for me, my happiest times, like if I could just quit my job today, turn off my phone and go do something, I would be on a beach. That's what I would do. It would make me happy. And I also used to love to paint as a child. I was never very good at it. I always enjoyed it. And recently I bought a cute little kit on Amazon and I've been doing painting like at least twice a week. And it's been really, really helpful. And then my third thing that I used to love to do as a child was to read. I was an avid reader. Child Robbi was so different than me right now. I was definitely like more introverted. I've really had to work on myself to come out and be confident, especially in front of a camera. It's really hard. I was homeschooled until I was in grade 5. So I was around all of my siblings. And then the first time I went to school, I just really wasn't equipped to be around other kids. Like, you know, the first time I heard a swear word was in grade 5. Like, think about like that. That was the type of life I lived, was this, it was just totally different from the real world. And I was protected from all of that. So to come into, a place as scary as grade 5, surrounded by kids and like bullying and like all of these different things and not knowing how to fit in and not having a friend group, that was really hard. And for me, I found my peace in the library. So I would actually go every single lunch to the library and have lunch by myself. And I volunteered to put all the library books away. Like that's what I volunteered to do at lunchtime because I didn't have the social skills to make friends and to feel confident. Not that I wasn't raised like that. Like I was raised to be powerful. I was always affirmed and validated. And, you know, I'm really lucky to have had that really supportive environment. but I didn't know how to do that around other kids. So as I grew up, I had to learn how to do that. But my point in saying that is, for me, my peace was found in books. And, it took me a really long time to kind of come out of my shell. But for me, time to myself, like something I look forward to after work, is to read. I love it. It fulfills me, and it kind of makes me feel safe. And I never realized that until I kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, what are my hobbies as a child, and which ones do I love doing now? And funny enough, like they're still the same. They're still the things that make me feel safest. And I think feeling safe and healing from those things and acknowledging them is the most important thing we can do, because at the end of the day, we're all craving a happy ending, but all of that stems from feeling secure and from feeling safe. And it doesn't just pertain to speaking about our young self. It's also like ourself 5 years ago and 10 years ago. I know in our early 20s are some of the most shaping years. And for me, they were the scariest, hardest, most exciting, most beautiful years of my life. And to be honest with you, I'm still processing some of it. I think we've all had situations where we've been in, relationships that have broken down, or friendships that have broken down, or, we've moved, like all of these really shaping experiences that you actually really have to think about. Like there is so much connected with that. Like I moved across the world. Most of us don't move across the world, but we move across the city, or to a new city, or to a new house. And in doing that, we're leaving so much behind that we often don't even think about. So I think that's been a really impactful thing for me as well. But I just wanted to leave today's episode off with something a little bit different. And that is with a letter that I wrote to my inner child. I think there's a lot of power in words. We all know that there's, words can bring life or they can take life. And I think writing a letter to, younger you or even future you is really important. It's actually one of the things that I did when I was going through my divorce and falling apart in, I was a mess on the floor, drinking champagne in the shower. I was a mess. And what I started doing was writing these letters to my future self and to my future husband. And it's funny because I read one of these letters that I had written 4 years ago. And I'm not going to read it to you because it's a little messy and it's very personal, but the essence of it was like I was speaking about where I was right at that moment and kind of what I was hoping for. And in that same exercise, I think it's really important to write a letter to our younger self as well. Like I wish growing up I had an older sister. That would have been so great. We all crave that, that guidance and that security of having someone older and wiser than us. I hope I can be that, to my sisters. It sucks that I, don't live closer to them. So I wanted to leave you guys with a note that I've written to my younger self. And, if she was sitting here with me, which she is right now. And I think this is a really powerful exercise because it just makes you think. So for me, I would tell my younger self, you're braver than you know, and those difficult circumstances that you didn't think you'd get through, you did. And not only that, that circumstance is now becoming a guidebook to other people. The fact that you can sit there and talk about these things. And I think that's really, really brave. And the next thing I would say is actually one of my favorite Bible verses, and that is the best is yet to come. And I think that's so true. So many times we have a circumstance that defines us and we think it can't get better. There's no way, it's impossible, but it just takes one circumstance, one thing, one person, one conversation, one thing to resonate with you, one decision, one hard decision, and your whole life can change. So it does get better. The best is yet to come. And I think when things are hard now, I still hold on to that. And it's something that I wish that I would have held on to more as a child, because I think I would have gotten out of bad circumstances earlier because I would have been less scared. Younger Robbi and future Robbi and present Robbi, the best is yet to come. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. It was a little bit of an interesting episode and I would love to speak with you more about it. So comment below, let me know what are some of the things that you would write to your younger self, and just be kind to yourself. Remember, next time you're looking in the mirror and you're talking down to that person that's staring back at you, remember who you're talking to, remember how incredible they are, and remember how incredible you are to be standing there right now. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, we will be back with you next week for another episode of Miracle Mindset. I will see you very soon.